Go ahead and get started. So let's start from the very beginning. I mean, the first thing that happens is you get a phone call. Okay. So one of the I always try to start from the very beginning, and I try to make sure that everybody is kind of on par. So the first thing that I'm going to ask the customer when they call in is, are you in front of the refrigerator? If the customer is in front of the refrigerator with today's technology, just ask them to send a picture of the model number and the plate. And if they ask you, hey, where is that at? I have no idea where that's at. Well, on most of we're going to get to it a little bit later, but on most of our refrigerators today, they're either on the left or the right side wall of the refrigerator. Okay. Some of the older appliances, if you got an older Kenmore, it may be on a tag on the very bottom of the refrigerator where the toe plate is. If I have a high end appliance such as a Sub Zero, a Wolf, a Viking, they may be up in the above the refrigerator section. It just kind of all depends. Okay. So the first thing you need to know is, what am I really working on? Because what the customer thinks and what is the actual fact of the matter is, they don't, a lot of the times they don't know. I mean, so just make sure that we're asking the customer to please send me a picture so the technician isn't surprised whenever they get out there. Okay. Whenever I was a technician, I used to go through and look at my calls. It was already routed for me, but I would go through and look at my calls and I would say, well, I got a refrigerator, a GE refrigerator here that says it's not cooling. Then I'm gonna go through and here's the parts that I might need for that refrigerator. So if I don't think I've got them on my truck, I may go to the parts department and say, hey, listen, I need to get some parts. So I want to make sure that I have all of my parts so that I have a first time complete. I mean, as everybody knows, if I have to go out a second time, God help us if we have to go out 3 times for a part, we don't make any money. I mean, this game is how to make money. So your first time completes, I mean, you should be somewhere in the neighborhood of about 60 to 80% first time completes. You'll never have every single part, but you have the ability to go ahead and try to predetermine what I might need, and I can always turn them back in. Okay. So the next question: how long have you been experiencing the issue? So what this tells me as a technician that I want the office staff to convey to me is, how long has this person been having this issue? You know, it could have been just started. You know, are they experiencing a food loss if it's a refrigeration product? How long has this been happening? That helps the technician as he's going to the home know exactly probably what mood the consumer is in also. I mean, if I have a washing machine and it hadn't washed clothes for a week, if I have a family of 4, I got clothes everywhere. So it's good to know how long they've been experiencing the issue. Okay. If it's a refrigeration product, you know, if the customer tells me, hey, it's not cooling. So the question that I ask the customer is the refrigerator itself, if you open the door to the refrigerator portion, is it still cool? Do you have anything in there that's still cooling? No. I just need to know several things. Okay. One of the other things, if I touch the side of the refrigerator, most common refrigerators today have a Yoder loop in them, and that Yoder loop is either active all the time or partially active. And I'm going to touch the side of the refrigerator to see if I have warm or hot on the side. That tells me, is the compressor running? Okay. That's just a simple question that you can ask the actual customer. Okay, are there any obstructions preventing us from pulling this refrigerator, whatever it is, dishwasher, range? Is there any reason that I can't remove this product all the way out? There is all the time. I mean, you know, the one of the things is on a refrigerator, or the dishwasher or the range. Today a lot of consumers' homes have a excuse me have an island counter. Well, if I have a, let's say, a refrigerator, can I pull that all the way out, or if I gotta, is it going to take two people to get around? Something that you need to know. The last thing you want to do is get all the way out there and go, oh man, there's no way I can get this out. I cannot remove it. So that's something to help the tech. Of course, if that's the case, then you're going to have to call. You're going to have somebody that can go and help the technician, or you may have to reschedule it. But that's something that you need to know. And of course, you're going to adjust your price because of the problem. Okay. One of the other questions that I always ask, that everybody asks, is what type of flooring do you have around your kitchen? Okay. Is it tile? Is it laminated floors? Is it linoleum? God help us if it's linoleum. Today's linoleum is not like it used to be. I mean, it's very easily ripped. If you're living in an apartment if you're living in an apartment, they usually furnish everything, so you don't really have the problems. But if I'm living in a townhome, I have no idea. If I'm living in a regular home, I have a single family home, I have no idea what's under it. I mean, it's all cheap today. If you go into a $500,000, $750,000 home, a lot of times they have linoleum down on the floor, and it's cheap. It's not a good brand of linoleum, so it's very easy to tear. Or if I have a tile, the last thing I want to have to do is replace tile because I didn't protect the customer's flooring. Okay, so the technician needs to know all these things as he's looking at everything. Okay, the other question is: there going to be someone there to aid in the unloading of the product if something happens and you need to empty it? Okay, that is one of the most important questions. The technician may not want anybody to do it, but it sure is handy, and the customer will understand that they have to be close by and help the technician get all the stuff out of the product. I mean, there's nothing worse than going to a house that has a refrigerator issue, and you have to actually remove stuff out of the refrigerator or out of the freezer. I mean, so you open the door, and I mean, if you look in my refrigerator right now, I've got all these bottles, I've got all these cans, everything that I've got to get out if I have to get to the back of the refrigerator. Same thing with the freezer. I've got peas, I've got corn, I've got all kinds of things, meat in my freezer. So I need something. They're going to need to have a cooler on hand so that I can unload it. So the technician will be able to tell the customer. That's the reason you want to make sure that the customer knows that that someone needed to be present to help unload. The other question that we always ask, okay, is, will there be someone over 18 present? Okay, we always made sure that there was somebody over 18 present in the house. That way, if something happens, you don't have a minor there, and somebody that will be responsible for the bill. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on. So let's say that I've got an issue with the customer calls in and has a complaint that it doesn't seem to be cooling properly, or I have an Icemaker issue, since that's what we're talking about here today. If I need to, I need to have the ability to check check the inside of my freezer, the inside of my refrigerator to know what the temperatures are. I mean, there's a whole lot of different ways that you can do. Okay, I don't necessarily trust. I have one, but I don't necessarily trust an infrared gun. Okay. I like that. I always carried as a technician, I always carried a gauge, just like you see here, that was a minus 20 to 100 and something gauge. 100, I think it was 120. Um, so I kept that so that I could tell how cold things were. Well, if I have this gauge, I have to be able to check this. Okay. On every single one of these gauges, there is an adjustment that you can make to zero your gauge in. Okay. So what do I have to do that? Okay. Number one, I'm going to take a glass of ice water. That's ice and water combined in a glass. Okay. I'm going to take my gauge that I have kept in my pocket or it's in my toolbox. I'm going to take it out and I'm going to insert it together just like you see right here. Okay. That's the reason there's a little hoop in the whenever you go and stick it into your pocket. Okay. You put those two together, it looks just like that center one. I have it sitting in the ice. I'm going to take that holding from the side, this plastic right there, just like everything is being done, and I swirl that around for about I do it. I used to do it about 30 seconds. That gives me a good enough. It says 45, but that's just what it said to calibrate for a calibration thing. Okay, 30 is great. 45. If you got 45 seconds, then go ahead and do it. Okay, I'm going to look at my gauge. I'm going to see what my gauge tells me right here. What should it read? We all know that water freezes at 32 degrees, but it also does what? It thaws at 32 degrees. So with me having ice and water in my glass, I am going to should be getting somewhere at 32 degrees. Okay. At that point, if my gauge is wrong, I can adjust my gauge so that it's calibrated properly. Okay. So what I'm going to do after I've done that is I'm going to take and leave it just like it is. I'm going to stick it into the refrigerator or the freezer, which one I'm going to look at, and I'm going to close it. I'm going to look at the model and serial plate on it, see if it's getting down to temperature. Okay. I can record any information that I need to record off of the model and serial plate unless I'm in the refrigerator. If I'm in the refrigerator, then I'm going to have to wait until it's all done. But most of the time, if we're looking at an Icemaker issue and we want to know how cold it is, because the Icemaker only sets at about 17 degrees. Okay. It's got to be colder than somewhere around 0 to 17 degrees before it will actually make ice. So if it's 30 degrees in the freezer, or let's say it's just 12 degrees, 15 to 20 degrees in the freezer. Okay. I'm still below freezing at 20 degrees, but my Icemaker is not going to work because it will never set. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look on the back plate of the freezer compartment. Okay. If you see frost on the back of that plate, I know that I have a defrost issue. So I know that my Icemaker is not going to work. My refrigerator is not going to work properly. If I have water that has run over the back of the plate and it is pooled down into the bottom of the bottom of the freezer section, I know that I have another problem. So you just have to, as a technician, we have to know what we're dealing with. Okay. So let's go back to what we were talking about, where we're locating the model and serial plate. Okay. So usually it's located on the left or right side of the refrigerator. Sometimes on older refrigerators, it could be on the back or under the toe plate, or like I said, on a very expensive refrigerator, high-end refrigerator, it could be almost, you're going to have to look in several different places unless you just know exactly where it is. Okay. This right here is an Electrolux Frigidaire. This is the one was actually in my house. Okay. So what information do I get whenever I open the door? I get my model number, I get my serial number. I also whenever I was with a whenever I was a technician and I had a phone. Whenever I first began, we didn't have phones. Okay. But nowadays, you got no excuse not to take a picture of your ticket and a picture of this model and serial plate. Why do I do that? Because as people, we constantly either skip a digit, we get one of the lettering wrong, we did it in the wrong order. But this way, I have if I get a call from the office and they say, "Hey, we back on call at Miss Jones' house. You set a refrigerator. This is going to be a couple of days later, maybe a week later. You talk to Miss Jones. You got a bad model number. You got a bad serial number. I mean, it could be a month later. So I need that information, and I'm not going to be able to get Miss Jones on the phone 99 times out of 100. It's going to be too bad, so sad your dad, especially if this is a warranty call. I'm not going to get my money. But Electrolux is not going to pay me unless I have the correct model and serial number, and it takes both of them to get paid. So make sure that we have all the information. Okay. Some of the other things that's on this tag. Okay. I know when this unit was manufactured. Okay. So this unit, my refrigerator, was actually manufactured on 4/9 of 2021. Okay. This unit pulls 13 amps. It's a 115 volt, 60 hertz unit. Okay. If I have a commercial unit, it may pull 18 to 20 amps, or it could be that it's not 115 volts. It could be that it's a 220. Okay. They're all going to operate on 60 hertz because we're in the US. Okay. What type of refrigerant is going to be in it? It tells me on this right here that this one is R600A. Okay. It tells me what the charge is. You've got to know what charge it is if I'm putting Freon into the refrigerator. If I find a leak and if I have to evacuate and put it back in, I've got to know how many grams I've got in my refrigerator. Okay. One of the other things, it tells me how much the defrost heater, how many watts it pulls. Okay. This one happens to pull 530 watts. Okay. So we're going to make sure that we have all of this information. And I know as a technician, I know what this going into it. Now, I will tell you that if you know how to do it, you can actually scan the barcode and it will give you the model number and it will give you the serial number. If you have an iPad that you use to print for your tickets, you can actually scan that barcode with a barcode scanner, click on the model number, it'll actually download the model number and we know that it's right. I still take a picture of it just in case something happened, but that information is good to me and I've already got it. So one of the other things that I may have to have, okay, I've got the web address and I have the 800 number that I can give to the customer if they have a question about their refrigerator. Let's take this for an example. Okay. Instead of this being a 4/9, well, let's just leave it like it is. So this unit was installed on 4/9 of 2021. That's whenever it was manufactured. Let's say that on 5/9, it was delivered to the house of 2021. So is there anything that is still under warranty with this refrigerator? Yes. Our seal system is still under warranty, but everything else is not under warranty. So if I have a problem and the customer says, "Well, my unit's under warranty. I've got an extended warranty because that's popular these days." Well, ma'am, I don't have that information. Do you have it? If they can't produce it, you're going to have to call the manufacturer. I'm sorry, but I can't perform this under a manufacturer's warranty. It's too old. It's not under warranty unless it's a part of the seal system. The only other exception to that would be if I had let's say I have paint chipping. That's going to be probably a call for the manufacturer. You'll have to get the manufacturer's rep on the phone and say, "Hey, I have a customer here that says that this is a defect in the refrigerator." Well, don't use the word defect. This is a problem with the refrigerator. It's actually it's scaling on the front door. My front door of my refrigerator that I replaced actually was scaling, and it was about 20 years old, but it was because of all of the fingerprints that were left on it and wasn't cleaned properly. And I live in Florida, or I did live in Florida, and that was part of the problem, was all of the salt air that caused it to rust. So it also tells me right here what kind of refrigerant I have in this unit. So let's talk about refrigerants. My R600. What happens if I'm looking for let's say it was a 134A. If I go in with a sniffer, I'm assuming everybody knows what a sniffer is, and I'm looking for a leak. Well, lo and behold, if it's blown in with this siloplane propane, that has, as an agent, that actually has some refrigerant that's used to push that foaming agent through the unit. So you're going to get some. Okay. One of the other things that it will tell me is where it was produced. Okay. This one was made in Thailand. Okay. So let's get back. Here's a Sub-Zero. This is where it's located in the Sub-Zero. Like I said, it's right above that. You'll probably have to remove the plate to be able to see it. Okay. Here it is right here. If you look on the right hand side, okay, this is a Whirlpool. Okay. What information is on the inside of the refrigerator? Okay. We're going to go back over this right quick. We've got the model and serial number, the type of refrigerant, the amount of refrigerant, the electrical rating, the defrost wattage. We'll talk about Ohm's law as we get on through the program here. Okay. So here's another picture. You can quickly look through. There's the model number on the left side. The serial number is just below the model number. It tells me how many amps I'm pulling. It tells me what kind of voltage I get. It tells me my defrost amperage right there in watts. We're going to have what kind of blowing agent it was, what type of refrigerant is used. On the next one down is how many grams of refrigerant is used. In 134A, you're going to find that is in ounces. Today, on all the R600, which built after basically on 2021, with everybody started moving over to R600. Okay, so this is all the information like we had already talked about. Okay, can you really damage a floor if you're being careful? Absolutely, absolutely. Everything, like I said, I have been in this business for about 35 years. Okay. Being as careful as you can be, doing all the right things. If you're not on top of your game, you can damage floors easily. Okay. Right here. If you look at the one on the left, okay, this is one of those laminate floors. This was caused by a technician that just yanked on it and pulled it out. He didn't have any protection underneath it. He just yanked on it and pulled it out. Well, there was something that was underneath it, and lo and behold, he scratched the living what out of the floor. Okay, on the other side, right next to that is a nick that's out of one of these cheap floors that I was talking about that looks like it's It looks like it's a, a laminate floor, but it's not. It's just a cheap. I call it trailer floors. So it is truly a laminate floor, and not a not a other. If you look on the right, the picture on the right, that's damage to a tile floor. You can probably get this up, but the problem is, if you look at all the baseboards, we're going to have damage to the baseboards. Is the customer going to say, "Oh, that's okay"? I guarantee you, in a $500,000, $750,000, $1 million home, the answer to that's no. I want it fixed. You destroyed it. So you have to be sure that all the fittings are tight, that you have put everything back just exactly like it was. And like I said, some of the times, I'm going to apologize for saying this, come hell or high water, you're going to end up with a floor damage. That's why you have insurance. But it's not something that you want to rely on, because if you rely on your insurance, it'll get canceled. Okay. So what can I do? How can I protect it? Well, if you look on the one on the far left, okay, that is on a range. So it has a solid piece that I can slide, that I can tilt the range back. I can then slide this full sheet underneath it, and I can pull the range out to keep it from marring anything on the floor. Okay. The other one is a refrigerator that they're showing. You can do this with a range, but you have to be more careful, because usually on the range it's so wedged in there so much that you literally have to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And with a refrigerator, it's on wheels, so you're a little bit more careful. Okay. If I have my druthers, the other one is, by the way, the other one, as you can tell, is strips, and they're about a foot wide. Okay. But if I have my druthers, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with part C, which is basically a reverse vacuum cleaner. It blows air. It inflates right here. Whenever it inflates, you can actually slide any unit. If it's a washer full of water, I can inflate that. It's called an air sled. I'm sorry, I never told you. It's called an air sled. Okay, so at that point, I can inflate this air sled. I can move it. I can move it any way that I want to move it. It makes it a one-man job instead of a two-man job. Okay, so I'm at the door. I'm wearing all of my proper PPE. I'm sure that everybody, every time you use, make sure that they put the booties over their shoes, that I'm wearing gloves. I have area protection, okay, to be able to pull something out. I also have a mat that I can put underneath my toolbox so that I don't get my tools. I don't get my tools that they cause problems with the flooring. There's all kinds of things that you can have that I have for PPE. Okay. Okay. So I get to the door. The customer answers the door. I'm talking to the customer as I'm walking back. The first thing that I do is I'm looking, and I'm not looking at the customer. I'm looking at the surrounding areas. Okay. If I see that there is damage to surrounding areas as I'm walking through, I take pictures of it. Okay. If I see that there's a crack in a countertop, I take pictures of it. I take if there's any other thing that I see that's wrong. If there's a chunk out of the wall, I take pictures of it. Whenever I get done, and I bring it to the customer's attention. Okay. So as I go through, and we've gone through and I verified the complaint, I then move and I make sure that the model and serial number information that I have on my ticket is correct. I make sure that I take a picture of it, take a picture of the work order. Okay, I'm going to work at the front of whatever appliance it is. Doesn't matter. We're talking about refrigeration here, but I try to work in front of the appliance. It doesn't matter if it's a range, a refrigerator, a dishwasher. I try to work from the front, not from the back. If I have to pull this, I run the chance of damaging something a whole lot faster. Okay. So if I have to move the requirement, I make sure that I've got my PPE equipment so that I don't damage the product. Okay. Me as a technician, I always try to divide everything in half. Okay. If I have a complaint, and let's say that the customer's complaint is the ice maker is not working. Okay. So I try to divide it in half. So what do? I go in and I verify that there's voltage coming to the ice maker. Okay. So in a Whirlpool, this was very easy to do with an ice maker. And back in 2000 up until 2020. And still some of the newer ones that were old stock, we're still seeing a few of them. Okay, but I'm going to try to divide this in half. So I'm going to verify that I actually have power coming to the ice maker. So I may have to pull a plug, check the voltage. That's the reason I said it was great for a Whirlpool, because you just pull the cap off and you can do all kinds of checks with a Whirlpool or a Amana. Okay, if I have a not cooling complaint, that's going to make my ice maker not work, right? So I've got to make sure that I have everything that I need. Okay, I'm going to open the freezing door to check the back, see if the back panel is frosted up. If so, place it into the defrost. Make sure that the heater comes on. If nothing, then I'm going to have to remove all the items from the freezer. I'm going to need to go down and I'm going to check the bimetal. I'm going to check the heater. I'm going to make sure that I have power going to my heater. I'm going to try to cut things in half. If I put it into the frost and I get nothing, I'm going to go immediately to the bimetal and check the bimetal. If I have no power to the bimetal, I'm going to check and see if I'm getting power from the bimetal. From the control board to the bimetal. If it's in one of the old style refrigerators, and it's a 20 cubic foot over under, and it's got one of the old style stick your screwdriver up in it and make it clicks. I used to just use my finger, but make it up click and make sure that it goes into a frost. I'm gonna check that. I'm gonna check power coming out of there. So if I don't have any frost on the panel, I'm going to fill the sides of the refrigerator, see if it's hot or warm. If it's not, I'm going to have to put the floor protector down, and I'm going to have to pull the unit. I'm going to have to be super careful, because if this unit does, and 99 times out of 100, each one of these refrigerators has an ice maker associated with it. So I've got to be super careful, because if this thing is older than a month, you run the risk of, whenever you pull it out, a water leak. Okay. Not only that, you have to make sure that it's not leaking already. If something happens and I find a water leak and it's been dripping and I've got a problem, I immediately call the customer in and have the customer verify that this has happened, and that has just been found, and that we as a company didn't do this. It's all about covering yourself. Okay, so this is one of the manual circuits that I was telling you about. This is usually on a cheap refrigerator. It has a manual defrost timer. It's the one where you stick your finger up in between the refrigerator and the freezer section. It's usually in the refrigerator. You stick your finger up and twist it, and it'll turn it into a defrost. So I can now go, usually it's between points 2 and 3 of the defrost timer, and that will tell me if I've got power coming out. Okay. So what happens here? Like I said, the defrost timer takes one leg. The compressor the compressor and the fan motor and the cold control all are part of the defrost timer. So the fan motor and the compressor and the cold control, none of those work if I'm in a defrost mode. Okay, so I've got to make sure that where my defrost timer is set, so that I'm sure that I have that I'm going to get power to my defrost heater. If something happens and I don't have power to my defrost heater, I'm going to next go to the defrost thermostat if I've already checked the defrost timer. Okay, so this is the Whirlpool side by side. Right here is their adaptive defrost control. Okay, it has as you can tell, this is a side by side. It has a damper assembly. It has an evaporator fan, the cooling, the defrost timer, the defrost thermostat. It's all down here. This is an adaptive defrost control, and what that is that the refrigerator sees that it needs to be, let's say that my doors on my refrigerator and my freezer are open 40 times a day. Well, the defrost control adapts to that, saying, well, I really only need to cycle every 10 hours instead of every 8 hours like it is programmed in the other control that we in this control right here. This is programmed for every 8 hours. You can't change it. But on my adaptive defrost control, it does change it. The defrost timer itself is called an adaptive defrost control because it literally adapts to the situation that's at hand. Okay. The other thing, here's one for a Samsung. This is a 18 cubic foot refrigerator. So if you look at it, this has 2 boards in it. We're going to make sure that, if I'm doing this, I have to check once again, it's only 120 volts. Okay. But as you can tell, it's a whole lot different than the other 2 that we've looked at. This is a whole lot more difficult it's not really more difficult. There's just a whole lot more things that you have to check. Okay. So let's go to Ohm's law. Okay. How do I calculate resistance? Okay. Ohm's law is an important and fundamental rule to remember when working with resistors and electronics. Okay. It defines the relationships between the components' current. I is amps, V is volts. Oh, excuse me. And R is resistance. Okay. Ohm's law consists of 3 mathematical equations that explain the relationship between the current. If you know 2 of these values, you can calculate the third using Ohm's law. Okay. So if I know I, okay, what do we say I was? That's amps. Okay. If I know R, okay, I times R equals my V, which is volts. Okay. So if I can multiply the amps, the amps and the resistance, I'm going to get my volts. Okay. If I get V equals R minus I, it's just a different version of the equation. Okay. There's also V divided by I equals R, which would be your resistance. My voltage divided by current equals my resistance. The middle one was voltage divided by resistance equals your current. Okay. So if you look on the right-hand side, it's broken it down a little farther into the personal, into what it actually tells you. Okay. Other common uses. Okay. We're going to quickly go through these. We need to get into the ice makers now. Okay. So number one this is one of my personal favorites. Ice in the drain hole. Okay. You can find anything from old little pieces of receipt, anything from like all of the labels of people just take and throw everything into the freezer and they don't peel the labels. I may find a price tag in there. Okay. I have found peas. I have found corn where people just take and throw things in the freezer. Okay. It's all black. It all backs up the drain. So what have I got to do? I've got to defrost it. I will tell you right now, as a technician, whenever I finally got a steamer, that was my that was my favorite thing to use whenever I had problems, was the steamer. I have no chance of melting a liner. It won't warp anything. It's a steamer. I can use it and I can defrost at much faster than anything else. So whenever I finally got my steamer, it was actually whenever GE had a problem with with the frost terminator, and it wouldn't work, and it would freeze everything up in the whole back side. And I hated getting into the side of into a side by side refrigerator because the width. You can't really tell, but I'm pretty wide whenever it comes to the shoulders. So I had a steamer, and I could use the steamer to keep to find out what was stopping up the drain. Okay. So whenever I did this, I had a bucket and I had a bunch of towels, and I had my steamer that was all in the bucket. So I would take that into the house. I would then spread my towels around, put my bucket in between, and I would constantly squeeze out towels until I got everything done. The way I didn't make a mess in the customer's floor. So I'm going to clean up the area. I'm going to remove the towels along with the steamer. Show the customer what they did wrong. You may not fix it. Maybe the kids that were throwing stuff in there. You don't ever know. But you show them, and you let the customer know how you can prevent some of the failures that are going on. Okay. And noises. This is one of the things that will drive a technician crazy. I used to ask people to record it if they could, but the problem is half the time you still can't find it. That's one of the things. If you got one of the new GE smart HQ devices, I can actually stop and start everything in that refrigerator. One of the great things that are coming along. Okay, other manufacturers are starting to check into that. Okay, so the heart of the refrigerator is the compressor. Okay, everybody knows this. Okay, most homes have for all of their appliances, they have a reciprocating compressor. Okay, it's a piston type revolving compressor. The most compressors, because of its low cost and high efficiency and its compact size. Okay, so here's the inside. If you've never had one apart, this is what the inside of the compressor looks like. I'm in process of building a training module for R600, and I am going to, so that I can get the compressor so that it's not 30 pounds whenever I want to travel with it. I can remove the inside of the compressor. Okay, but I want to make sure that you saw this and what it looks like, because you'd be surprised at the number of technicians that's never seen the inside of a compressor. Okay, so what does the compressor do? If you look right here, the suction line, it comes in the suction line, moves around the compressor, comes down to the suction valve. The suction valve is just what it says. It opens and closes as the piston drives, pulls it back. It pulls the suction valve open. As the piston valve goes around, it closes the suction valve. The discharge valve at that time opens, and then you discharge over to the high side. Okay. Underneath is your oil. One of the things that everybody needs to know is if you have R600, about 60% of your refrigerant can be trapped in the oil. Okay, so this is how a compressor works. I have got to pull these parts to make sure that the compressor is actually working. Okay, Here's the components that are in the side of the compressor. You have one of two overloads, and then you have a start relay. Okay. If I'm going to check the overloads, here's how I would check it. Okay. I'm going to go my neutral and my hot. You would look right there. I'm going to make sure that I have the power coming to it. If I do, I'm going to have to go and check the overload, and I'm going to have to check the capacitor. Here's how I would check that capacitor. Okay, this is for a PTC relay and then electromechanical relay. Okay, these are things that you're going to need to know if I have to check that. Okay, here's the wiring schematic for the compressor. Okay, here's how I check my compressor to make sure that it is a compressor issue and not something else. Okay, this is our shorted windings. I would go between any of those, and it would tell me if I've got a shorts in it. Okay, so now we're down to we've got to know that the Icemaker, what the problem is with the Icemaker. If I've gone through and made a quick check at the house, I know for a fact that I have an Icemaker that's not working. Okay, I've verified. I've cut off everything else. I have now verified that I've got the information that I need, and I need to move forward. Okay, so I'm going to verify that the Icemaker is not frozen up. If it's on a Samsung refrigerator currently, your chances are your Icemaker is frozen up. Okay, if it's not frozen, I verify that I have water coming to the Icemaker. Okay, how am I going to do that? I'm going to cycle the Icemaker. Okay, I'm going to check any components that I think are failing. Okay, so if I go through and it calls for water and I don't get water into it, I know that I either have a valve problem, that the valve is not opening properly, or I've got a water problem. So I've divided my system in half again. If I've got everything and I get water but it's not cycling, I have a different issue. Okay, so let's talk about the Whirlpool Amana. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the front cover of the Icemaker. On a Whirlpool, I kept a quarter in my pocket, made it the easiest way for me to get the front cover off the Icemaker. The great thing about a Whirlpool and Amana was that they had thought about this unit before they ever got into it. So each Icemaker comes with a test point. Okay, test points can be used to test the components or initiate a harvest cycle. Okay, checking between points L and N with a voltmeter set to the appropriate AC the voltage scale will confirm the presence of 120 volts to the Icemaker. Okay, if the source voltage is present and the Icemaker is down to temperature, the Icemaker should be cycling. If the Icemaker is not cycling, then I go to the harvest cycle, and I'm going to initiate a harvest cycle. Okay, how do I do that with a Whirlpool or an Amana? This is how I do it. Okay, I'm going to jump between the T and H. Notice that this wire has a coating on the outside of it so that I don't get shocked. You cannot use a standard wire that has no coating on the outside. You will get shocked. Okay, I'm going to put those 2 points. I'm going to use those as a test point. Okay, I'm going to wait until that cycles and it gets the braids about 10 o'clock. Okay, and then I can remove the test probe. Okay, so cycling the Icemaker will allow you to make sure that the Icemaker will fill when water is called for. Listen closely. Once I tell everybody is use your eyes, use your ears. Okay, main thing about an Icemaker is your eyes and your ears. Okay, so I'm going to listen for it. I'm going to see. You can hear the Icemaker because the water valve will actually buzz unless it's totally gone, and then I'm going to know that I got nothing, that it never called for water. So if that's the case, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to find that that the unit has now has the water valve problem. I'm going to have to pull the unit, so I'm going to make sure that I have all the right PPE equipment to keep from anything damaging the floors, the walls, anything. I'm going to take pictures before and after. Okay. If you receive ice to the ice maker, then the ice maker head, you have to check it. So I'm going to unplug and remove the ice maker. To properly test the ice maker head, here's what I'm going to do in this slide right here. Okay. These are all of your test points. Okay. Every single one of these is a test point. We've already jumped between T and H, so we know, so the ice maker has cycles, so we know that. So if I'm going between thermostat and heater, that's good. So I have to have a neutral and a, okay. So it's easier for me to come over here and start talking about this. Okay. Here's my test points. If I go between L and N, I'm testing the module. That's the power. If I get voltage, that's this you would do whenever whenever it's plugged in. Okay. If I get line voltage, I'm good. Okay. I'm going to move down to the next one. Okay. If I get no power, that means that I have a problem somewhere before the ice maker. Okay. So if I go between T and N, I'm testing the bimetal. Okay. It's either opened or closed. I'm going to use the ohms scale. It's either going to be opened or closed. Okay. My heater, L and H would be on and off of my heater. So as this ice maker cycled around, I'm going to find out if my heater is any good. So I can do this on the ohm scale. I can go between the L and the H and see what kind of voltage reading. I mean, what kind of ohms I get. Okay. If I don't get any, if it's open, I've got a bad heater. Okay. If I go between the L and the N, I have a bad motor. So this little motor right here on the right, on the left side over here is bad. So I'm going to have to replace this whole module. Excuse me, man, I just lost my train of thought there. Okay, so after I've done that, I can go through N and V. That's my water valve. I can verify that I got it. I'm going to know that was good because as I cycled it, it's going to actually show that it was on. Okay, so let's talk about adjustments. Okay, here's my adjustment window, as you can see right there. The factory setting, small hole contains in the window. That's the little right there. Okay. The adjustment screw is on the side. In the old days, they used to have a little knob that you could turn. As things got more defined, they removed that, but they still left the knob over there so a technician could know exactly what I was doing. So if this thing has done, so clockwise, if I'm trying to increase the amount of water, let's say I only get half a tray full of water. So I'm going to increase my water valve time. Okay. So clockwise if I go clockwise, I'm going to decrease the size. Counterclockwise increases the size. So if I make about a quarter of a turn, that gives me about 10 cc's of water more. Okay. Do not adjust more than one turn. If you do, what the problem that you're going to run into is if you had an issue and it breaks free, something that was in the line breaks free, you can flood the floor. Okay. So let's talk about a Frigidaire or a GE. Okay. These are the old styles. These all have the heater underneath the bottom. This is not the new style. We're kind of talking about the old style stuff. We're going to get to a little bit of the new style stuff that we're going to talk about, especially the Samsung, because that's the one that everybody's having the problems with. Okay, on an old style GE Frigidaire, doesn't matter which one. This center screw right here, you have to be very careful because this motor that's on the left side here, okay, will actually has enough torque in it that you can actually crack one of these little gears that's on this cog that turns the ice maker. Okay, if I want to adjust the ice maker flow, I can go at the very top there. You see a little screw. It tells you right there if I'm doing plus, if I want to increase it, I want to back that out, and that's going to increase my flow of water. If I've got too much water and I got water in the bin, I'm going to decrease the water size, so I'm going to go clockwise. If I look on the far right side, you can look and there's a little switch, and that's your ice maker on and off. You would be surprised how many times I used to go in, and that switch would be turned off because somebody had stuck their hand in there to get more ice and accidentally hit the switch. Okay, so if I want to check this ice maker, I'm going to take a screwdriver. If you notice, this is a Phillips head, and I'm going to take a little small number 1 Phillips head screwdriver, and I'm going to stick it in that center. And I'm going to, if you see that it says turn, this is on all of them. It had a little turn arrow. I turn that clockwise, and that will initiate the harvest cycle. Okay, there it is right there. Here's the perfect example. This is your motor gear. Okay, this is showing you exactly where to turn. This right here in the center, you get a great view of the little number 1, the number 1 Phillips head that you use to initiate the cycle. Your water valve replacement, you see that they have pulled it out just a little bit. Most of the times you're going to find that it's right dead center when it comes from the factory. That's one of the things that you need to make certain that as a technician, you make note of that so that you know that if somebody else may have been in there monkeying around with it. Okay. This also tells me what my model number is on the ice maker. This is a M1 ice maker. And it also gives me a serial number. Shows you that the timing gear right here in the center is the big gear I was talking about. And then your gear motor and all the information there. Okay. So here is a Frigidaire IM117 ice maker. Everything that was produced 2021 and newer, okay, started with, you're going to find a flex tray ice maker. So let's talk about the flex tray ice maker. Okay, the flex tray ice maker has been around. Okay, this is not a new technology. Amana, Norge, all had a flex tray ice maker back in the 40s. In the 50s. Okay, I've worked on a huge number of these. Okay, the one thing that I can tell you is today's ice maker is failed to compare with an old Norge, because with an old Norge, I could actually pop the tray out, drop it down, pop it back in, and get it to cycle and get it running. I kept 3 of these on my truck whenever I first started, because a Norge was good for about a year, and then the coating would wear off of the ice maker. Okay, and I had to replace the ice maker tray, which Norge thought ahead of time, made it very simple. Today's that is not the case. It is not simple. We're going to go, and I'm going to show you several of the ones. Okay, one of the things that you need to make sure of is you're going to have to remove the bucket. We're going to have to remove the top right here you see it. You're going to have to remove that top front to get the ice maker out. Okay. Today's Samsung ice maker, the number 1 problem with the ice maker is what you're seeing right here. Okay. This is actually my father's ice maker. Okay. If you look at it, there are 3 things wrong with this ice maker sitting right here. If you look at the very back of the ice maker, you're going to see that I may have a problem with the gear that motor that turns the ice out whenever I'm calling for ice in the bucket itself. That happened to my dad's. I had to pull it out. I couldn't pull it out. There was too much stuff blocking it, so I could not. At this point, the ice maker won't even cycle. Okay. Luckily, this one came out. The one I'm actually at my parents' right now. So lo and behold, last night I had to quit making ice. I had to come in and try to pull a bucket. Couldn't pull the bucket out. I immediately knew what the problem was. I looked, and sure enough, once I did a forced defrost, you could look at it, and if you look at the right top side, see all the ice that's jammed in there? That's because the ice maker didn't shut off. Okay. The other problem that I've got is if you look underneath, there's a big ice dam going all the way back to the back. Well, this ice maker is usually in the refrigerator section. It's sucking cold air underneath because this ice maker bucket has no shut off for the ice maker bucket, so it doesn't allow for the ice to for it to shut off, so that I don't get extra air into the system itself, and cause this freezing all the way back to the bottom. That's the problem with this ice maker that I had yesterday. I had to put it through a forced defrost. You're going to learn that this problem has been plagued Samsung for years. They still have some issues with it. My dad's is about 10 years old, so it's not like he's going to get anything or any help out of it. So we just have to. This is the third ice maker that's been in my dad's unit, and because the ice maker just broke, the ice maker itself broke. So I might as well just replace the whole thing, because it's just as cheap to replace the whole thing as to do anything else. This unit is very difficult to pull out. It's not a simple 1, 2, 3. Take 3 screws out, pop the ice maker out, and it come out. This doesn't work that way. This one has a refrigerant line that runs right through the center of the ice maker. That's what freezes the ice. Freezes the water and turns it into ice. So that's why you have this hole from the very back of it. That's where that line is. If you don't do it properly, you end up buying a whole refrigerator because of this ice maker line. Okay, so like I said, here's the same picture. So ice maker jam. One of the things that you're going to do. The problem is, and I have a friend that actually works for Samsung, and I told him that the issue that I see is this is open all the time. It doesn't close. There's no flapper valve there. There's one on the door itself. But that's not where your problem comes in. It's the inside of the refrigerator. And if you look at it, it constantly drips. I still get those drips on the floor of the refrigerator. This is a 4-door refrigerator, by the way, the one that I'm talking about. Okay. So one of the things that I have to do is I have to check for leaks around the ice maker. Okay. So what do? I take a flashlight and I run all the way across the top and down the sides, and I look for an air leak. I can look through with shining a flashlight through. I can actually see if it's leaking. Okay. There is a whole class that I'm going to do on Thursday for this right here. Okay. So I'm not going to go through a whole lot of this. We're just going to keep going. So here's what you have to do. You have to use the forced defrost. Okay. Before you be careful before you defrost it. Okay. Before you be careful defrosting, you can't pull this bucket out. The one that I just had to do last night, I couldn't get the bucket out. So I can mess something up by trying to get the bucket out. You have to be careful with that so that I don't bother it. Okay. Then I'm gonna fuse the force defrost to try and defrost this ice maker before I do anything else. Once again, this takes somewhere between 20 minutes and it can take up to an hour. Okay. So at this point, if I can once I get done, I can get the bucket out. I can look and find out if I still have this issue. If I do, I may have to close it back up and I may have to run force defrost again. Or I can go to my truck, get my steamer. You cannot use a heat gun on this or a hair dryer. It will cause the ice maker to warp and you have problems. Okay. So I'm going to have to you may have to do it again. How do I put it into force defrost? Here's a quick example of how to do that. Okay. I'm going to go to the freezer button and the lighting button. This is all on my dad's refrigerator right now. If you look at it, it could be a different setup, but it's always the top left and the middle button to put it into force defrost. Okay. So I'm going to simultaneously mash the top left and the middle button. I'm going to hold them. Okay. It's going to be about 8 seconds. I'm going to hear it beep. Okay. Then again, for 8 seconds, the lighting button will twice and the unit will come out of defrost if I need to take it out. Okay. Once I'm in the defrost mode, I'm going to hear a beep. Okay. You'll have to scroll through by pushing the lighting button. Okay. So that's that center button. I'm going to mash that lighting button. And I'm going to roll through until I reach FD. Okay. Once I reach FD, I'm going to leave it. Okay. Depending on how ice it is, it can be an hour. You just have to let it go. If you're unable to remove the bucket or it's not defrosted, then you're going to have to, you can try it again. Once again, you can be there another hour. I don't have time for that. So I'm going to try to remove the bucket again, and I'm going to try to get it done. Okay. Here's what it looks like whenever it's totally clean. Okay. And I have no issues. This is actually my dad's whenever I had to replace his ice maker about a year ago. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, if you look right here, there's the ice maker clip. Like I said, I'm going to quickly go through this because we are going to go through this whole class on just the Samsung ice maker. Okay. Place the new ice maker tray housing. Slide the ice maker until it clicks when the ice maker tabs are engaged. Okay. Click the harness by depressing the tab and routing the wiring into place. There's the reinstallation. Whenever you pull the ice maker all the way out, this is what it looks like. This is the refrigerant line that runs through it. First time you're doing it, be very super careful. Okay. Okay. Does anybody have any questions on ice makers?